Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Wait, What Are We Talking About podcast, episode 145. My name is Bret, aka Enigma9011, and you can catch this podcast live over on twitch.tv/Enigma9011 every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern. You can join the chat if you're a subscriber over there. We'd love to have you in on all the fun conversation, but if you can't catch it live, that is a-okay. Go over to YouTube and podcast services the very next week, where it's broken out topic by topic and put as one big video and MP3 for your amusement on the following Friday. Last but not least, hashtag ad merch store. Get all of your swag over there. T-shirts, cups, backpacks, and more. Rep the brand. Support us, and we would love you for it. Another solo episode today. Going to be talking a whole lot of video games with you guys. Might be a little shorter one, just a heads up, but we'll have some fun with it nonetheless. So, video games. I've been playing one video game quite a bit as of late, as it released this past Thursday as of recording. I've been playing a whole lot of Cult of the Lamb, and boy howdy is this game fun. I was looking forward to this game since early release of like trailers and stuff like that, early in the announcement phase. And it delivers. It's a lot of fun. Currently, I want to say I have maybe 10 plus hours in the game. And I have two kind of playthroughs going right now. I have one that we have over on the stream side of things, which will still be going on as we progress in the coming days and weeks. And then I do have one off stream that I'm just kind of playing through on my own. And both have been very satisfying and fun to play through, and it hasn't gotten to a point where it feels like tedious or repetitive. It's very fun and engaging in especially the balance of the two game modes that this game does offer. If you don't know too much about Cult of the Lamb, essentially it is a roguelike where there are elements where you go after these dungeons, you're fighting off bad guys, trying to get to your mini bosses, your bosses, and kind of progress the story. But when you're in these dungeons, it has those roguelike elements where things are random. The weapon you will have is random, or the spell that you can cast is random, and then the arrangement of rooms is different every time that you kind of tackle each individual dungeon. So that has been very satisfying with obviously how the combat is and how the lamb, your main character, can dip and dodge all the places, and each of the weapons feel very satisfying. Personally, I haven't noticed like any one that I'm kind of leaning towards in particular, and maybe it's just because of the amount of time I have played. Maybe one will kind of stick out as like, oh, that's the one I want to aim for or trying to build for. But as of right now, they all feel really good, which is great in one way. But nothing has stuck out like a sore thumb. The only difference I've noticed has been either based on their stats, which is like the attack damage that you're going to be dishing out, or the speed that your character is able to attack with. Those are the only things I noticed. That obviously sometimes, oh, this is a little slower because it's an axe, or it's real fast because it's the dagger. But nothing has felt detrimental. As for weapons, I know on the flip side of things, a game like Hades, there were certain weapons that I definitely was like, that is one that I really, really enjoy, like the bow and arrow. That was like my go-to. And then other ones like the shield were okay, but it wouldn't be my most favorite if I was to grab it and then take it on the run during that game. But as for Cult of the Lamb, that's been great. And continuing the dungeon aspect of it, it's been fun tackling those. And once again, tackling these random rooms where it's the enemies, figuring out what resources do I need this run. Do I need more food? Do I need more lumber, stone? Or do I just need to kind of explore and see what these other random encounters or occurrences have to offer for me to progress my story? I will say, dungeons, at least in the early stages, to me, haven't felt very difficult. And maybe it's because of the experience for past roguelites. Maybe it's that. I think I've only died once and failed a dungeon, at least in the first two areas. So there's that. It does get progressively harder. The first bishop boss, their area I had no problem with, but the second one it does get a little bit more challenging with the enemies, their attack patterns, and things of that nature. So that is good. You do want this kind of gradual curve or slope in difficulty. You don't want it to go obviously way too difficult too fast or be too slow of a burn. So I feel it has a very balanced approach, and the difficulty did start ramping up in that second area. Another thing about these dungeons that's very nice, they don't take super long, and this was another thing with Hades that I felt was a plus. Playing it, it's very satisfying of the combat you're jumping through. It feels satisfying, but it doesn't feel like a slog or like a really long time, like, oh my god, I've been doing this forever. And in actuality, these dungeons, if I was going to go through the entire, at least the first section, it's only maybe 15 to 20 minutes like on the steep end. There were some times I was running through these and it was under 10 minutes. And that's kind of nice. It's kind of nice to know, like, oh, all right. It felt satisfying enough, but it wasn't a bunch of time where if I needed to run in and just do, like, I don't have a lot of time, but I want to play quickly, I can do something like that and not feel rushed or like I'm not getting something out of it. You're quick in, quick out. You're able to get the things you need, and then you're able to go back to the other side of the game, or obviously if you have other things to do, to put down the game and come back to. So the dungeon crawling aspect so far has been very fun. In there, along with the weapons, there are different things that you can run into. So there's resource rooms for lumber, for stone, for food that you can use for your cult and your village on the flip side of the gameplay. So you have those you can aim for. There's a general store in which you can buy more tarot cards, which I'll get into in a moment, which kind of allow for buffs of your character, whether it's gaining health or your weapon damage is increased or speed is increased, or things will drop more often. So there's stores there. There's areas where you get a little bit more lore and story about what's going on by talking to a character. And I want to say there's kind of more challenge rooms where some of the rooms will be like, okay, you're going to get more of X resource, but every time you get hit harder, so it's worth more of your health. And the way the paths are kind of shown, once you complete at least that initial opening section, you have these branching choices where you can kind of decide, like, okay, I need this lumber, but then I'm going to have to deal with this thing later, or another decision that's going to come up ahead. That's always fun and satisfying, kind of keeps the game fresh, along with obviously the random rooms that Cult of the Lamb does provide so far in their dungeons. So that's been fun there. So I've been mentioning resources. Resource. The lumber, the stone, the food. The flip side of the coin in this game is also its, I guess, farming simulator aspect, or kind of village builder, whatever you want to call it, when you're taking care of your cult. So in this area, or this type of the gameplay, you won't be doing any combat or anything like that. Instead, you're building up and caring for the cult and the followers that you have kind of built around you and saved throughout the dungeon process. So actions you need to do there. You need to build buildings for them so they can either worship you to make you more powerful through their devotion. You need to make them better shelter. You need to make them meals and cook for them. And then you can send them off to do certain tasks like chopping down trees or mining rocks or being a janitor and cleaning things up. It's kind of a whole different ball game there of like almost a social simulation, I guess you could say. And I will say that part of it, or that aspect of it, has been a little bit more difficult than I thought at times. However, I do feel that's kind of the same with a lot of that genre of game. For example, a Roller Coaster Tycoon, a Stardew Valley, like, it can at the beginning feel like a lot, and sometimes balancing resources or time managing where you're investing things in can get a little overwhelming, or it's not as balanced as you were hoping for. I feel once the ball gets rolling and you get more practice with it, that's when it kind of gets a lot easier. For example, on the stream side of things, time still kind of goes on as you're dungeon crawling, so your cult followers will get hungry, or their faith levels will kind of drop if you're not taking care of things around the village area. And on stream, I was kind of investing a little bit too much time in the dungeon crawling, and when I eventually returned, their devotion levels, or like their trust in me, kind of dropped, and we started getting some dissenters and some people kind of talking against me. So I had that whole obstacle that I had to deal with, and there's ways you can deal it. You can either just sacrifice the people and get rid of them, or you can try and re-educate them. So I had like little stockades that you can put them in, and you kind of talk to them and be like, hey, no, it's okay. So I had that problem on my hands. But on the other side of the gameplay, my non-stream gameplay, I feel like I understand the mechanics a little bit more, and I haven't run into that yet where that gameplay, that cult has either been starving or their devotion isn't there, and it's a bigger cult. So I think, just like anything, it's experience. The more you play it, the more you kind of tinker around with it, the better you will get. And I have heard that and experienced myself with other games of this nature, like a Minecraft. That's just the first example I can think of. You try it the first time, your first house is all dirt, and you're like, this farm is like this. But then when you redo it the next time, things improve, it's better, and you know what to expect, so you can kind of plan ahead for it. And I feel like this game is the same way. The more experience you have, things will improve, things will get better, and it will make it easier for you, and you'll feel rewarded for that because of obviously how the progression of the lamb, your character, is going, but how the cult followers, how their energy levels and devotion levels and stuff like that, how that reflects because of your actions. So both sides of the game are very satisfying and fun to play with. Been really enjoying that. Something that I need to dive in a little bit more into, because it's so not convoluted, that has negative connotations to it. Has a lot of depth to it, is the skill trees. And it seems like there's like 2 or 3 of them, and it's kind of not hard, but there's a lot to offer behind each of them. So for example, there's one where you get doctrines that you can kind of implement as you gain more prestige with your cult. So you can implement these doctrines that invest in, like, okay, what is our game plan for when food is a thing we need to think about, or law and order and controlling things. And whenever you do that, you essentially get 2 choices of like how you're going to essentially run your cult. So one I can think of or at least an example I can think of easily, is there's a life and death one. So it's kind of deciding like how is the cult going to react to life and death, rather death, or more towards death. So there's one where you can learn to kill your followers, but if people see you kill the followers, like, their faith will drop down. So it gives you the action or the ability to be able to do it, but it has that negative side. So if you needed to kill somebody who was talking against you, or I don't know, for some reason you just didn't want somebody around, you could get rid of them. And then the flip side of the coin was, I believe it was an afterlife. So you can send them to a higher power, and then people will kind of be a little bit more, they'll be more faithful because of this holy action that you've done. And with each of the 5 things that you can invest with the doctrines to kind of build your cult rules or abilities that you can do, it kind of has like a tree, or at least 2 paths, and you can constantly choose like which of the 2 you do get, but you only get, like, it's a 50-50 shot. Once you choose that one, you can't do the other one. I don't know how that will come into play later in the game once you make all the choices for that specific branch of the 5. But it's curious to kind of see the 2 choices if you want to be a little bit more aggressive in your leadership, or you kind of want to be nicer to your followers and stuff like that. Like, another one was money involved. So there was one where you could once a day collect like a tax from your followers. You could either do that, or you could bribe followers to gain their loyalty. So it really depends on you how you want to interact with your followers. That's, I would think, where the doctrines come in. Then there's rituals, which you unlock throughout the game, where you can use these to build up your cult's total faith level. So there's one you unlock early on where you can kind of like make a bonfire and everybody dances around and you party. There's one where it's a big feast and you all sit at this long dinner table and they all just chow down. There's one where you can sacrifice a guy just in like a summoning circle, essentially. So there's that's whole thing. And then the last one is, so along with the resources, the lumber and the stone that they can gather for you, there's a shrine in the center of your cult, and you can assign people there to essentially pray to it. And the prayer makes the devotion levels, and you can take that devotion, and once you get to a certain number of it, like a resource, like an experience and a level up, you can make yourself as the cult leader more powerful. So you can increase your knowledge and gain different abilities to build different buildings, or refine materials to make better stuff later on, or farming or whatever. And that seems to be the most intricate of the skill trees. At least right now I've seen maybe 4 tiers, and they have a wide variety of things that you can invest in and choose along the way for that tree. But I don't know how many levels there are, and I haven't looked ahead to kind of see, all right, this is a skill that I want to get to. What is the tree, the branch of skills that I need to invest in beforehand to get to that skill? And maybe that's something I should do, as we talked about, kind of planning ahead, and results will be better for some of the resource management. Maybe that's something I should aim towards, to be like, okay, I'm going to need an outhouse eventually. How do I get to an outhouse? So that kind of helps my cult not get sick, not be disgusted by, obviously, poo on the ground, etc. So there's that. So the skill trees are great. A little overwhelming at first, especially with how many different ones there are. That's something I think, once again, just similar to the resources and the buildings, maybe with experience that will get better over time. But cool mechanic there. Cool to see. One little criticism, I guess I would say, and granted, I'll take this with a grain of salt, maybe later on in that giant skill tree, this is something that will become available later if I invest the proper points into it, is the social aspects of this game. So what I mean by that is your cult followers communicate with each other. They talk to each other. You can see them laughing at things, smiling at things, sometimes even yelling at each other. And this will lead to different relationships, obviously, forming between your cult followers. And sometimes you'll get missions from them of being like, oh, I have a crush on so-and-so. Can you help me break the barrier between them so they know I like them? Or on the opposite side of things, they'll say, oh, this person's a dissenter and they're talking behind your back. Yeah. And I haven't seen it yet in my gameplay, but sometimes they'll want to fight each other to the death. So sometimes on the side of the screen, you'll see a pop-up that follower 1 and follower 2 have become friends, or some kind of social barometer they have reached, or relationship they have reached, which is great. I wish there was some way that you could see how everybody reacts to everyone else, or the relationship with everyone else. You can read the followers' minds and see what they're thinking, but it's all very generic. Oh, this was a boring conversation. I didn't like it. I'm real tired. I like our cult leader. I had a really good meal today. It's all very generic, and when it comes to the relationship stuff, I feel like I should be able to look into that a little bit more and see maybe where the hiccups are. Who doesn't like who? Why don't they like that person? Something of that nature. And the reason I feel that way is because obviously there's a pop-up on the screen that says so and so and so and so are friends. Why would that pop up if that's not important? So granted, could be a skill later. Maybe that's coming up. Who knows? That's something I wish that I could look at right now and see. So there's that. Customization of your characters is great. Obviously, your main character you're not going to be able to customize because it is the lamb. We need to all hail the lamb. But as for followers, once they come in, you can swap their name. You can give them any of the different forms that you've unlocked. Make them all kind of crazy colors. There's 3 different variants. I do wish there was a little bit more variance in the animals, at least for like, if it's a deer, there's 3 types of deers. If it's a dog, 3 types of dogs, stuff like that. Could be cool to see more of those. But I digress. There is a roadmap. They are apparently going to be adding free updates rather to this game. So I'm excited to see what the team at Massive Monster and Devolver Digital, what changes they make to this game, what they do add. They have announced their first DLC with 5 new followers, a monkey, a bee, a narwhal, and 2 other animals that I can't think of or remember off the top of my head. Excited to have those guys join the team, as well as obviously whatever future DLC they're planning down the road. But the game's been a blast. I'm really enjoying it. It's one of those games where it's very chill. Like, it has a very cool story that it's trying to tell with the one who sleeps. You're obviously following him, and your cult's following you, and you're trying to get him free by taking down these evil guys. But it's very chill, and where it's like you can almost turn your brain off at certain points and just be like, I'm going to this dungeon to hack and slash and, get resources, or I'm here and I'm building my cult and this is all fun. It's just that it's very satisfying in its gameplay, and I applaud the developers. They did great with this game, and I'm looking forward to playing more. If you guys want to get your hands on it, not a sponsor, not an ad, it's on Xbox, it's on PlayStation, it's on PC, it's on Switch. Go grab it. It's a lot of fun. Looking forward to playing more, whether it's on stream, whether it's off stream. Just been a blast, and looking forward to what they can offer down the road with this game. Good stuff. Good stuff.